Some 2020 Democratic candidates are touting their support for reparations for slavery. Kamala Harris, Elizabeth Warren, and Julian Castro have all gotten on board with the idea. But before we all jump on the bandwagon, let's take a look at what the actual cost could be using those Pickford payouts to black farmers under the Obama administration. Of course, they were discriminated against by the USDA. Each were given $50,000. It was awarded to over 33,000 farmers or their heirs. So if we apply that same model right now to every black American and people of multicultural who say they have black descendants, then we're talking about $2.5 trillion. Joining me now to debate, Fox News contributor Deroy Murdock and hashtag Roland Martin, unfiltered host Roland Martin. Roland, let me start with you. I'm kind of surprised that 3 Democratic candidates have jumped on board with this as a central issue already. What do you make of it?
Well, first, we make the mistake by trying to automatically jump to the cost as to understanding why you're even having the conversation. When you talk about this year commemorating the 400th anniversary of 20-odd Africans arriving in Virginia in 1619, you have to look at American history to understand that it goes back to General Sherman and Special Order 15, 40 acres and a mule that was rescinded after Lincoln was killed. There was an effort to distribute land to freed slaves that was never passed by Congress. This nation has always used the free labor of African Americans to build the country, but has never dealt with the reality of preventing black folks from being a part of the economic system in this country. Those are facts.
Deroy?
Well, here's a fact. Slavery ended 154 years ago. It's been a long, long time since we had slavery in this country. And you have people who've come to this country, let's say the great wave of immigrants who came around 1890, 1900. I think they're going to be really shocked and disgusted if this thing goes through. And you have people who may have come from Poland or Russia or Ireland, and they suddenly have got to pay money to the progeny of people who have not been enslaved for 150-odd years. And you have people like my family. I'm black, but my family came to the United States in 1962. My parents are from Costa Rica. Do I get a check? We had no role in American slavery.
What do you say?
This is going to be the most divisive.
One second, Roland, I'll let you in, but I do want to ask, what do you say to the folks that says it just wasn't when slavery ended, though? The Jim Crow laws.
There you go.
And all the things that came after that stopped black people from being able to enter into the U.S. economy like everyone else?
I think a lot of what we did to address that involved things like the Great Society, many of these public assistance programs. Most of those were launched right about the same time as the '64 Civil Rights Act, and many of those things were done in a sense of trying to get people sort of in a better state economically.
Roland, Charles, are you concerned, Roland, about what Deroy said, potential pushback from white folks in America saying, hey, I never owned a slave, and I don't know anyone who's ever been a slave?
Well, again, though, this is the problem when you have American history. And look, Deroy actually said it. He doesn't even fully understand American history. The Great Compromise of 1877 ushered in Jim Crow. You had 92 years of Jim Crow. You talked about the Pickford. Actually, it did not end. Allow me, this book, Dr. King, Where Do We Go From Here? Chaos or Community, where he talked about the issue, the practical cost of change for the nation up to this point has been cheap. He talked in this book where he talked about how even in 1967, 90% of the laws that were passed had not even been implemented. Here's the issue you're dealing with, Charles. You talked about the Pickford decision, the USDA discriminating against African Americans. The federal government's own housing policies. It was law discriminating against African Americans. The Fair Housing Act wasn't even passed until 1968, only because King got killed. So you could talk about slavery. There are African Americans today who were impacted by federal housing laws, and we know most wealth in America is a result of inheritance and also through housing. And so, Deroy, do you deny that reality?
Look, it's been 51 years since the '68 Fair Housing Act. Okay, that's half a century. You want total incredible acrimony and racial strife and tension like we've never seen before. You make white folks who had nothing to do with slavery give money to black folks.
You keep saying slavery, but you can't ignore Jim Crow.
Including people, I'm somewhat prosperous, as is Charles. Do we get checks as well? Do we give a check to Ken Chenault, who is the CEO of American Express? He doesn't need that money. I think we should put our efforts and our money into school choice, into things that help little poor black kids learn and get prepared so they can succeed in our society. Not create a formula for total racial chaos and mayhem.
This is the mistake.
Awful, destructive policy and idea that
Last
would
word,
demolish
Roland.
any kind of civility left this
Speaking
country.
of destructive, you still have the people who built Black Wall Street in Tulsa, where the Oklahomans apologized, but it's not paid for the damage. You look at Rosewood in Florida. We have facts where you have African Americans.
Roland, do you think every black person in America would be entitled to payouts?
1 second. Here's the piece. In order for you to before you get to the cost, you need to study what the issue is first to understand that. And unfortunately, America has denied these realities.
Do you think every
and
black
too many
person
people,
in America should get paid?
What needs to happen is, as Castro said, supporting a bill that John Conyers submitted for a number of years. You need to study the issue first before you get to that. You can't deal with D unless you deal with A.
Yeah, you're pushing collective guilt.
No.
Deroy,
I'm pushing
total
history.
Social division. Shame on you.
Deroy, I'm
Shame
pushing
on you.
history. And you don't know
Horrible idea
black
that will tear
history.
this country to
You
pieces.
don't even know American history. I suggest you actually
studied
learn.
American history, read American history.
I
and this is a great
suggest
way
you
to
learn
learn a
more.
future of total mayhem, which I do not want to see.
Let's leave it there.
Disgusting idea.
Passion on both
Charles,
sides.
read
knowledge.
this book.
I'll read it.
Dr.
Deroy,
King, where do we
Roland,
go from here? You too, Deroy.
Thank you both very much. We'll be right back.